I just recently realized that that we can have ego in many ways that we don't realize. And I want to go over a list of some ego things and see if we recognize any of these at work in our lives. First of all, let's talk about ego. Ego says it's everybody else's fault and takes no responsibility. Ego wants to blame it on somebody else, or just, it's not my fault, or there's nothing I can do, or not taking personal responsibility for our life. Ego wants somebody else to pay for how we feel, or somebody else to admit that they were wrong. Ego will come and say, hey, I'm just going to keep coming against you until you admit you were wrong. I'm going to just keep dragging you down because I want you to feel how wrong you were. Ego wants to measure between two people. Let's see if I'm a little bit better than you, or if you're a little bit better than me. That type of thing. But true godliness is that we surrender to God and say, God, what do you want to make me? Where are you taking me? What do you want to make me? Here I am. Change me in whatever way you want to change me. Instead of looking at getting somebody else to change or things like that. Or saying that I can't change because my wife isn't doing it right, or my counselor's not doing it right, or whatever it may be. Maybe my counselor's not spending enough time with me, or whatever it may be. Ego comes in all sorts of forms. Shyness is even a form of ego. Because if you use your personality as an excuse for not being what you should be, that is ego. So how many times do we say, well, I'm just shy, or that's not really me to be outgoing or something like that? That's all part of an ego trip. Because God designed us to be able to reach out and touch other people if we're willing to surrender to Him. But we use this personality thing as an excuse sometimes, instead of recognizing the benefits. Yes, different people have different personalities, but there's benefits to those personalities. God didn't give some people a good personality and other people a bad one. It's the ego and the lies and the things like that that keep us from benefiting in the way God created us to be. Because some people have automatically it seems like they have more compassion for somebody, and other people more direct and help to put things in order. And there's nothing wrong with these different ones if you can work together in such a way. It doesn't work very well to have a team with everybody giving orders. But neither does it work very well to have a team and nobody gives any orders. You need somebody that's willing to step up to the plate and make some decisions and get the job done. But when teams learn to work together, it can be amazing, and amazing things can happen because of the flow that happens when teams work together. But if there's ego involved, then there's this constant comparisons and things like that goes on, and then we can't flow together. Boys, you can't be talking if you're recording. You got to go somewhere else. Everything you say will get on there before my voice does. Being a fake and caring about other people's opinions is an ego. How many times do we care about other people's opinion? But that's all part of ego, because we're not being real with ourselves or with God. Now that doesn't mean that we never hear somebody else's opinion. I believe it's important for us to hear other people's opinion. But when we allow that opinion to start ruling us, or we start getting dependent on that opinion, then we get off track very quickly. you will never be happy with your success if it is all about beating someone else's success. If you're just constantly looking to, you want to beat somebody else's success, you will never be happy with your own success. The only way to be happy with your own success, if you find out from God, where is He taking you, and are you doing what He showed you to do so far? Because God takes us on a journey. God takes us step by step on a journey, and He shows us what our next step is. And if we want to know all 40 of the next steps, then we have a hard time doing the next step because we're not satisfied with doing what God showed us to do and just taking that next step. Every one of us, if we're honest with ourselves and honest with God, every one of us knows what our next step is. If our next step is to wait, then that's our next step. Just wait. If your next step is to pray, then that's your next step. Go ahead and pray. If your next step is to write somebody a letter or make a phone call or whatever it may be, then that is your next step. And there's many times in life that we're not going to know 2 or 3 steps ahead of time. There's times that we will. But there's times that we will not know 2 or 3 steps ahead of time. We will know what is our next step. And then if we can be faithful in taking that next step, then He shows us what the next one is. And then later on He unfolds more of the picture, and we can see what it is that God is wanting us to do. But I believe that along the way, if God would have showed me a whole bunch of steps ahead of time, I think I would have quit. I think I would have just backed out and not been able to do it. But by taking the next step and just doing that next thing, we're able to keep going, because that's all what we need to do is to trust God for the next step. Ego comes in the way of that. Ego wants us to figure something out or compare us with each other or use some kind of excuse or get fake and just try and pretend we have it together. If we don't have it together and there's people depending on us having it together, then maybe we have to fake having it together. I've heard a preacher already preaching, fake it till you make it. And I'm not quite in agreement with that. I don't think we should fake it. But I do believe that we need faith. So maybe a better way, and probably what he was trying to say, is faith it until you make it. Sometimes we just have to step out in faith and say, this is the best I know how to do. And so I'm going to just do this until it becomes more clear to me what my next step is after that. But I don't like that we would even say fake it, because fake implies that we are not being real and that we're using a cover-up to make us look better than what we really are, instead of allowing God to cleanse us and make us what He wants us to be. Ego is all about self-condemnation and self-criticism, and the criticism and condemnation of others. Most of the time that's how ego works, is that we're either condemning and criticizing ourselves or condemning and criticizing other people, or both. And that needs to stop. Especially self-condemnation and self-criticism, that needs to stop. I mean, if you're doing that, if you stop that, if you stop criticizing yourself and you stop condemning yourself, you're probably also going to stop criticizing and condemning other people. Because I believe that the root of it is actually pointed at yourself, and because you don't like what's coming at yourself, you're going to start pointing at other people. That begins to happen automatically. But an interesting thing happened lately where two people were, how do I want to say this? I want to I want to watch that I don't break confidentiality. But two people were going at it again, you know, talking against each other. And it got pretty intense. It got louder and louder, and they were saying things that they didn't like about each other. And then some other people joined in and also said some things that they didn't like about them, one or the other of them. When they were all done, I said, now everything that you said that you didn't like about the other person is probably what you don't like about yourself. And all at once, they started admitting that that was areas that they did not like about themselves and repented of that. I believe that many times that we can remember that whatever we don't like about somebody else may very well be something that we don't like about ourselves. And if somebody doesn't like you and they're talking against you, maybe it's not you that they're actually against. Maybe it's themselves that they're against. Maybe they're talking about something they don't like about themselves, and you happen to be the one that gets the outflow of that. Ego does not cause people to want to work with you, and it does not cause people to trust or refer you. It only causes people to stay away from you. If you think about it, we really don't like people with an ego, do we? We don't. I mean, I'm not saying we don't love the person, but we don't love that ego. It's hard to be around a person like that. And it's hard to love them unless we can look past that ego and see that ego as more of a wall or a self-protection thing rather than who they really are. But most of those people, when you can break through to the other side of that, you find a heart that is longing for love, longing for God, longing for companionship, longing to be able to trust somebody. But because they don't trust somebody, they shut up behind that wall. Many times, we've talked about walls many times, but is it fair to say that those walls are all ego? I believe it is. I believe that any walls that we built to protect ourselves, any walls that we built to keep people away, are probably all ego. Ego comes in many disguises. You may not think you have an ego, but see if you recognize any of its masks listed here. The blame ego loves to play the blame game for its lack of results. This ego says it's their fault. It's my spouse's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's the economy's fault. It's the White House's fault. And we could add to that list a number of different people. You know, maybe it's our bishop's fault or our neighbor's fault or whoever it may be. But that blame ego does not help us. It's not our friend. How about the know-it-all ego? Know-it-all ego says, I already know this stuff. I can do it better. When are you going to get to the real content? When are you going to get to the real message? I already know all this stuff. That's the know-it-all ego. The fearful ego loves to speak fear. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? What if I make a mistake? What if I can't do it? All kinds of stuff. That fearful ego. Fearful of stepping out and doing something. Fearful of making a mistake. How about the comfort zone ego? Okay, we're good. We're happy with the way things are. It's not really what I want, but it's okay. Staying in the comfort zone is not going to help you or anybody else. Comfort zone ego is one that's really hard to break sometimes, because anytime that you speak any truth, it comes against somebody's comfort zone ego, because you can be comfortable just kind of going along through life if you don't get any more information. But every time you hear truth, it comes against that comfort zone ego, and you have to step out and say, okay, yes, I am fearful, and I have to get rid of that. Yes, I am critical. Yes, I am a blamer, whatever it may be. And now it's time to get rid of that and give it over to God and trust God. And allow Him to help us to get where He's taking us. Self-righteous ego. Self-righteous ego would say things like, oh my goodness, I never talked like that. I thought you were a godly person. Or, I wouldn't wear clothes like that. There's all kinds of making sure that we don't associate with certain people, certain race, certain belief systems. Stay away from those people over there. Maybe whatever they got will jump on us or something like that. But isn't it supposed to be that if God's light is shining through us, that we don't have to be afraid of darkness? Do we really need to be afraid of darkness, or do we allow the light to shine through us? I believe that if the light is shining through us, we don't have to worry about the darkness jumping on us. Now, I'm not saying just being naive and foolishly doing things thinking that everything's okay, but I believe that it is more important that we focus on allowing God's light to shine into us so that the darkness has no place to work. The judgmental ego, constantly judging somebody else. And again, I think this one also comes from judging ourselves. The person with the judgmental ego is probably judging himself first and judging all kinds of other people. You should not be judgmental about people. For instance, if you're judgmental against a rich person, you really don't know how they're living. There's people that are rich people, and they're not living rich. There's people that are not rich and they're living rich. But what does it help us to judge them? Does it help us any? Does it help them any? No. Helps more to pray for them. That they would make the right decisions and do the things that God is asking them to do. Maybe that rich person you're judging lives a simple life and spends very little on personal items, so he or she can give more to the needy. And judgment is one of those things where the Bible says, judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. Whatever way we're judging, that judgment is going to come back to us. So what we've found along the way, and we have to keep reminding ourselves sometimes, is that if people are judging us, then it's important for us to check, am I judging somebody else? If people are judging us, it helps a whole lot more to get rid of any judgments that we're making against somebody else than it does to try and fight off the judgments that are coming against us. And so, sometimes it's important to just take a mental inventory and a heart inventory. Am I judging anybody? Including myself. And am I judging myself? Or am I asking God to cleanse my heart and make me what He wants me to be? How about the false humility ego? Even like, well, you know, it's not about me, it's all about Jesus. That can be a false humility ego too. Because if it really was all about Jesus, wouldn't He do some things very different? If it really was all about Jesus, and He could do anything He wants to in your life, wouldn't He do some things different? What do you think? You might be surprised how bold you would get if you would have allowed Jesus to do anything He wants to in you. You might be surprised where you would preach, who you would talk to, and what you would do. But the truth of the matter is, He works through people. And He's constantly checking to see, are you available? Are you available? Will you do what He's asking you to do? Are you saying, here am I, send me, Lord? Or are you saying, oh, I hope God doesn't ask me to do that. Let Him send this other person or something, not me. False humility is just pride and an act. Real humility comes from the heart. It emanates naturally when we are truly humble. And remember, humble does not mean quiet and shy. The righteous are as bold as a lion. True humility does not mean that we're just shy and quiet. True humility really means being exactly who God made us to be. Who did God ask you to be? If God is asking you to get up and speak, then true humility is saying, yes, Lord, I'll get up and speak because that's what you asked me to do.